Good morning, Sarah and friends and family. Welcome to the first morning devotion here as we moved into this new season where church has become virtual, where we're watching this on our phones or on our computers or wherever you're catching this in the midst of some odd times here. If you didn't catch the announcement last night, we're not having church the next couple of weeks for sure. The office isn't open here at church. For sure, for the next couple of weeks too. And as we move through this odd time, there's an easy way to think about this as wilderness. Wilderness is a scriptural idea because we see it many times throughout Scripture. We see Moses leading the Israelites through wilderness. We see Jesus, after he's baptized, head off into the wilderness to be tempted. That's a phrase that we use sometimes when we move into a time that's unknown, a time where we understand that we're going to have to journey and we're going to have to wait and we're going to trust that God's going to show up, though it might be uncomfortable for us in the meantime. And so I thought that would be a decent place for us to start here with our morning devotions, just to talk about what it's like to be in the wilderness and to offer a blessing for that time. There's a lovely book by Jan Richardson, who's a Methodist, I believe, pastor, who's written a couple of lovely books of poems for certain seasons and for certain journeys in the church year, who points out that before Jesus goes into the wilderness to be tempted, before that journey happens, this other beautiful thing happens. He's baptized by John the Baptist in the River Jordan, and then God shows up and God speaks. In Matthew chapter 3, verse 17, we read that a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." And so as we move ourselves into a wilderness time, a time of unknowing, a time that is unusual, where our normal rhythms are thrown off, things like sporting events and church and school aren't happening that we're used to, that fill up the rhythm as we move into this unknown time and we don't have an idea how long it will last. I think it's important that we understand that we move through that time still called beloved by God, still named as His children, still watched over by Him, still taken care of in the midst of whatever our struggle is that has us in the wilderness. The journey that the Israelites are moved through by Moses after they are rescued in Egypt is a scary time, but God leads them through that. Time and time again, He shows up. That's in fact one of the stories we told last week in our first virtual worship. The time Jesus goes through in the wilderness is a scary time. He faces the devil and is tempted with three things that really appeal to different parts of Jesus' humanity. But how He overcomes it is He remembers who He is in God and who God is to Him. So I offered this as our first morning devotion, this poem by Jan Richardson that is really about a blessing as we head into the wilderness. It's titled, "Beloved is Where We Begin." If you would enter into the wilderness, do not begin without a blessing. Do not leave without hearing who you are, beloved, named by the one who has traveled this path before you. Do not go without letting it echo in your ears, and if you find it is hard to let it into your heart, do not despair. That is what this journey is for. I cannot promise the blessing will free you from danger, from fear, from hunger or thirst, from the scorching of the sun or the fall of the night. But I can tell you that on this path there will be help. I can tell you that on this way there will be rest. I can tell you that you will know the strange graces that come to our aid only on a road such as this, that fly to meet us bearing comfort and strength, that come alongside us for no other cause than to lean themselves toward our ear, and with their curious insistence whisper our name, beloved, beloved. beloved. My friends, we head now into a wilderness time in the world where we don't know where it's going to go or when it's going to end or what it's going to look like. The season of Lent, which we're still in technically, just not without its normal rhythms, is a wilderness time too, as we prepare ourselves to hear the story again of the cross, but also the empty tomb. That's where Jesus' journey ends, that begins with his baptism and God saying from the heavens, "This is my Son, the beloved." And so however long our journey will be together in this virtual space, start this day knowing these two things. That we're moving into a time of wilderness, or have been there already for several days. And that's unknown and it's scary, and nothing's promised for us of how that will go except this one thing. That God will be with us there. The God who calls us beloved from the start. And that is good news for the rest of this day and all the days ahead of us. I invite you to share this message with anyone that you think might need it this morning. I invite you to remember that our church is still trying to minister in lots of ways. Today, you should receive some information via email about our efforts to take care of those most vulnerable at this time. And also, you should be hearing very soon about the way we've set up for people to give to the church online. We had been working on that for a while, and this wilderness time kind of nudged us to do that sooner. So keep those two things in mind. You might hear from me or hear from the church's email officially sometime today about those things, if you haven't already by the time you're watching this. And remember this as we depart. The mission of Saron Church is to know, grow, and show the love of Jesus Christ. And you could do that anytime, in the wilderness time, in the day that is before you. And I invite you to do so. God bless.